Bonjour, 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 and welcome back to the Waves of Your Soul. I am super pumped for today's video because today we're doing another episode of my underrated mass market decks. I like to do these every few months where I present to you some tarot and oracle decks that are mass market, meaning they should be fairly accessible, more affordable, more readily available. You can get them on Amazon, bookshops, all of those that I believe are underrated, that I believe are hidden gem, that I feel like potentially are not necessarily shown as much on TarotTube or not used as much in pick a card readings videos that I watch, and that I feel like deserve their time in the light. Maybe not necessarily as popular as some other decks, and yet that definitely have something super cool, unique, interesting to offer. And so I like to do these videos every so often to share with you my underrated mass market picks, because I believe that even though there's tons of amazing indie decks out there, and God knows I have a lot of them because I'm a deck lover through and through. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that. We don't need to spend a lot of money to get some cool decks. We're very lucky now that there's fantastic decks mass market, and some of them sometimes fall under the radar a little bit because they're older, or maybe there's just so many decks that are out there that sometimes we're just like drowned in the amount of them. And so I like to take the time to kind of shout a few of these out, and it had been a while since I hadn't done an episode, so I wanted to make a new one today. I've made a whole playlist about my underrated decks, as this is a subject I've talked about since the beginning of my channel. So there's definitely a few videos out there. I'll leave the link in the description box below. In the description box, you're gonna find all the names of the decks I'm mentioning today. I will also make sure to leave all of my other social media links and other videos of mine you may want to check out. And without further ado, let's get into the new episode of my underrated mass market hidden gems. All the decks are going to be in mass market, so you should either be able to find them on Amazon, your local bookshop, wherever you guys buy your mass market decks. And I've got some oracle as well as some tarot. This one I want to mention is really purely because there are older decks right now that are getting their revival. The Aquarian Tarot, which is one of my all-time favorite decks, is getting a revival. It's getting republished with a thicker book, and we love to see it. And I'm super excited because it's a deck, like I said, I really enjoy, so I'm glad that it's getting a new spot in the limelight. But an older deck that I feel like not a lot of people talk about enough is the Hanson and Roberts Tarot by Mary Hanson Roberts. 1985 was the first edition, and the next edition was 2004. So yeah, actually in the 80s it first came out. This is by US Games, and this is one of those older decks that I feel like I don't see enough of, and yet that definitely is an awesome little deck. The size of it is more pocket size. If I compare it with a regular sized tarot deck, you'll see it's definitely smaller, which I think is going to be awesome for all of those of you out there who have smaller hands. Look at that. It's more like pocket size, I would say, so much smaller, which makes this definitely one of my go-to decks when I want to take a deck in my handbag if I'm going on a little trip or something. Whilst the Hanson and Robert is not a underrated deck in the sense that a lot of you will know this deck, I know a lot of you will know it, it's a very popular deck in the sense that it's marked the tarot history, I don't see it enough now being used. I feel like it's been a little bit put to the side, maybe because there's a lot of new decks coming out, and so older decks from the 80s and 90s tend to potentially sometimes be put a little bit away because we've got so many options now to choose from. But there is something so charming about this deck that's giving a little bit fairy tale vibes. I think it's from the quality of the artwork, and so I wanted to mention it today just in case some of you guys didn't know about it. There might be some of you out there who have never heard of it, in which case I feel like you need to know, because it's really truly a gorgeous deck. The size makes it super portable, super easy to carry around, and the vibe is very fairy tale like. Now, one thing that I love is the people's expression. The facial expressions are awesome, they're very lively. Look at this. There's like something about the way that Mary Hanson Roberts has depicted the people's faces that just truly reflect all of the turmoil and happiness that we might go through as humans, giving a little bit fairy tale vibes, which if you watch my channel before, you know I love pairing tarot with fairy tales, drawing inspiration from fairy tales to create fairy tale inspired tarot spreads and stuff. That's definitely my jam. And even though this doesn't necessarily refer specific fairy tales at all, we don't see like Snow White or anything like that, it looks like it could be in the Snow White universe or in the Cinderella universe. There's something a little bit childhood storybook magical about this, which I enjoy. This is definitely an RWS inspired deck. If you're a beginner and you have books about the RWS, you'll have no problem using this deck with it. It's very much close to the original with some slight reimagination, and mostly what I think, like I was saying, what this deck does great is people's expression. I love the quality artwork, the fact that it was hand drawn. Overall, this deck is just super easy to read with. It's a straight sharpshooter, as I have found most older decks do. I don't know why, but from my experience reading with the Aquarian Tarot, the Cosmic Tarot, this one, there's something about those decks that have been out there for decades that I feel like, in terms of the egregore they pick up, makes them very sharpshooter, maybe because there's been like decades of readings with them. Even though we all have our different copy, in terms of energies, I found that to be quite true. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. Let me know if you feel like that's true as well, but reading with decks that have been out there for longer, it's a different vibe, it's a different feel, and they tend to just not dilly-dally around the subject and to be very straightforward, sharpshooter vibes. So I wanted to mention this deck because I feel like I said, even though it's not necessarily underrated in the sense that a lot of people probably know about it, it's definitely one that I don't see a lot of, and so I wanted to talk about it today. Let's move on to an oracle deck, still mass market obviously, that I think is very underrated in the English speaking world. I don't think it's that underrated for my French speakers out there, because originally it's a French deck. However, the cards are in several languages, and for that reason I feel like a wider audience could be aware of it, but maybe because it's originally a French deck and an older French deck at that, not that many people, I feel like, in the English speaking tarot tube world are mentioning this deck, sharing this deck. This is l'Oracle Bleu, literally the blue oracle. There is definitely a few editions out there. You can find it by different publishers. The cards will look the same. It's just that the guidebook might be a bit different shape. Maybe the size of the cards might be a little bit different, but in terms of the artwork, you're getting the same thing. This is an older French deck. It's truly a classic in French cartomancy. And yet, I feel like, again, massively underrated, at least in the English-speaking world, and so I wanted to mention it today. The guidebook is in French. However, the cards are in several languages, and the way that this is set up, this is a very divinatory oracle deck, and it's a very intuitive oracle deck. So even though the guidebook is in French, for each of the cards you only get a couple of keywords, and honestly you don't necessarily need it, because as you're gonna see on the cards, you'll understand straight away what's going on. So for example, for news, the keywords are contacts, news, mails, and administrative news. From the world news, you could have guessed that yourself. For the keyword love, the keywords are couple, lovers, and harmony. You could have guessed that again yourself. So the guidebook, even though it's in French, I don't think you necessarily need it. I never personally use it. For me, the cards are super intuitive, and I love that on each of the cards we have the keyword in English, in French, and in Spanish. So for all of my Spanish speakers out there, this would be wonderful as well for you to use. I love the backs. We have this beautiful lotus flower, and as you will see, every single card is in those blue tones because it's called Oracle Bleu, so the blue oracle. I think this is definitely underrated for me, again, because of the fact that originally it's a French publication, so maybe not many non-French speakers know about it. However, this is truly a wonderful deck if you want to be doing some divination, if you want to divine, if you want to find out what's going on, if you want to look at your months ahead, your week ahead. Am I gonna get that job? What's going on at work? Why is that person not responding to me? What's gonna happen to me on holidays? Will my nephew get his exam? Whatever you want to ask around divination, around divining, around finding out what's going to happen, looking at the months ahead, the week ahead, all of those kind of things. This is great. The reason why it's really great is because it has, first off, a good variety of cards. There's 73 cards in this, so it's almost tarot size, but the cards are smaller again than your stereotypical tarot card size. Let me pull another card to show you. I should have just kept the one I had out earlier, but again, I'm a bad YouTuber, we know that by now. As you can see, it is slightly shorter, but a little bit, just a smidge wider. Even though it's 73 cards, the fact that it's slightly smaller will be easy to shuffle for everyone, I think. Good variety of keywords, which means that it covers lots of things. You can do career reading with this, you can do love reading with this, you could do family related relationships type reading with this, which makes it really great for any type of divination you're trying to do. This is also great for timing because you have season cards, so thanks to that you could ask, okay, when is the best time for me to launch this project, and you'll be able to use the season cards to time things. Artwork, obviously, for me, I think is wonderful. Obviously, it's a very personal thing. This is a very unique type of artwork. The people look humanoid but a little bit alien-ish, which I know some people will love and some of you will not like. For me, I really enjoy this because I think it looks very beautiful. I find the artwork very enchanting. I love blues. I love tones of blues. There's also places, so you have the countryside. I think you have the mountains, the ocean, so you could also even look at locating something, which is great. You have significator cards, a woman, the child. And then, like I said, you were talking about day-to-day things. You have the elements, fire, earth, so you could use that for also identifying, for example, astrological signs potentially of people, if you're trying to find out about a specific someone. There's definitely a lot you can do with this deck. This is one of my favorite cards. I think it's gorgeous. This is one that I've owned for years and that I always come back to. Sometimes it's a little bit almost too honest and brutally honest that I have to put it on the side sometimes, because I'm like, okay, I know you tell me what I need to hear, just sometimes I don't want to hear it. So this one I sometimes approach with caution, because it will tell me what I need to do, even though sometimes I might not be ready to hear it. Yet when we're feel in a sticky situation and we really need to be told the truth and the key and core of the matter, then this is a great tool. This is a funny one, makes me think of D'Artagnan, you know, from the Three Musketeers. This mustache and this red hair, so fierce. So really a cool, interesting deck. The fact that there's like 3 languages on the card, I think would make this really interesting for a lot of you out there. And this is, like I said, one I love to use more for divination, for looking at the energies of the week ahead, months ahead, all of that, looking into situations, not for self-empowerment, self-love, journaling or anything like that. That's not really what this is for. And I've noticed that my favorite divination decks, for at least oracle decks, are French. And so there's a couple of exceptions of great English ones. I feel like French oracle decks really nail the divination aspect. So I thought maybe I should do a video sharing with you my favorite oracle decks for divination. There's some French ones, some English ones, but let me know if that would be interesting to you, if you would like a video around oracle decks that you can use for divining, for actually trying to predict what's gonna happen. Not for self-love, like I was saying, not journaling, not guidance, but for actual, divination. So let me know if you'd like me to do a video about that, because I definitely have some awesome oracle decks I use for that. Let's move on to another oracle deck. This time it's an English deck, but it also has many languages in the guidebook because it's a Lo Scarabeo deck. This is L'Oracle de la Nuit by Alexandra V. Bach and Carol Ann Eskenazi. Mass market in English, I believe in Spanish and Italian. I mean, those Lo Scarabeo decks are always at least in French, English and Italian. And why I wanted to include this particular deck in my underrated mass market deck is because the Tarot de la Nuit is definitely a popular deck. I see it used often. I don't personally own it, even though I'm very tempted to get it at some point. But it's a very gorgeous deck. It's giving very like ethereal, fairy type of look. I've seen it used a lot on either tarot readings, tarot tube, but the oracle, L'Oracle de la Nuit, I see it way less, and so I wanted to talk about it because it's actually a deck I've been enjoying recently and that I wanted to shout it out. Before I get into it, there are a couple of things that I want to say pre-warn about this deck that I don't necessarily love. The first thing is the fact that there are very, very few cards. It's like 30 cards. So honestly, for me, this is only worth it if you can get it on sale, because that's full price for 30 cards. It's a bit of a joke, I'm not gonna lie. That being said, the theming of this is absolutely up my street, because here we're looking at fairy tales, and again, as I've mentioned before, I love working with fairy tales with my tarot practice. I love looking at fairy tales as a way to draw some wisdom. I love to create custom tarot spreads inspired by fairy tales. I did a whole deep dive around them last year. I even shared some of my spreads on my community page and on my Instagram inspired by fairy tales. You guys seem to have really liked that. I will definitely do that again this year. And so I love working with fairy tales archetype, working with fairy tales as a way to like get guidance and stuff. So when I knew that this particular deck was inspired by different fairy tale archetypes and stories, it was a no-brainer. I knew I wanted it, despite the fact that there's not enough cards in my opinion. And like I said, I see the Tarot de la Nuit very often shown, but I don't see the Oracle shown as much. It could be because of the theming. Maybe fairy tales are not as popular to use. And also I think one thing that makes this deck potentially harder to use is the fact that the keyword on the card is the name of the actual fairy tale. So we have like Rapunzel here. I've got the French version, by the way, but you can find this in English, like I said, Los Scarabeo. You have the Evil Queen, you have the Little Red Riding Hood, so you've got the name of the actual fairy tale, but unless you are very familiar with them and you've done your work with them, or you check out the guidebook, which is still very succinct, then you're gonna have some struggle actually making a sense of what this card is trying to tell you. And I think this could be why this is underrated and I don't see it used a lot, is because this is gonna require work. It's gonna require people to actually know the fairy tales and to figure out how it speaks to them. And the guidebook does a good enough job. Like, it will tell you, for example, but this card is Baba Yaga. It tells you very shortly the tale. So for me, this is not enough. I would actually go and read like the story, but you do get a few sentences to refresh your memory, and then you do get a guidance message here, which the guidance messages are very good, and you can understand very quickly like that the creators definitely have worked extensively with fairy tales and stuff. But I still think that for this deck to really sing, you have to kind of have been doing personally a certain work with fairy tales in order to make your own meanings with the archetypes, with the stories, with what it means to you. And so for me, this is amazing because this is the kind of work I enjoy, but I can understand that it's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. And I think, again, because the keywords are the story and not a keyword that you can apply to a situation, that might make it a little bit more obscure to use. Like if here we had like transformation, for example, for Podan instead of just Podan, that might make it more user-friendly for people out there. That being said, for me, for the kind of work that I enjoy doing, for my fairy tale work specifically, it's one I really love. It's kind of like archetypal work for me, this one, but obviously fairy tale inspired. And I think the artwork is very gorgeous. Obviously the tarot deck is also very gorgeous, and so this is one I really enjoy, that I don't see a lot of, that I think is underrated, which again, I understand potentially why, but that I still wanted to shout out on my channel today and share with you guys. The next tarot deck I wanted to mention that is, in my opinion, hugely underrated, because I barely see anyone talk about this, is the Voice of Tarot Vox Arcana by Los Scarabeo. This is a collective artwork deck, meaning that for every single card, a different artist participated, which I know that for a lot of us out there, and me included actually, this is the exception. This is something that sometimes can put people off, the idea that there's a different artwork / artist on every single card. It can be a little bit of a obstacle sometimes for connecting with the deck. At least for me, it's something I really struggle with. This is definitely the exception for me. That's the only collective artwork deck that I own. This is a deck I tremendously enjoy. I think it might even be in my favorite decks of 2021, if I remember correctly. And the reason why I enjoy this one so much is because even though there's a different artist for each of the card, there is a single intention throughout this, due to the theming of the deck, or the intention put behind the deck. So the fact that this is called the Vox Arcana, the creators have actually come together and thought of the tarot as a symphony, as a concert, and each card is supposed to represent a different voice, Vox, right? A different instrument that comes together to create a beautiful melody, a beautiful orchestra, a beautiful symphony. So everything is written in the guidebook in that lens of looking at tarot, singing a special song. We even have at the end of the guidebook some songs that were chosen by the artists that inspired their specific cards, so you can even have a little playlist listening to their inspiration, which I love, because there's this intention of voices coming together to sing a perfectly harmonious song. Even though some cards are more set in modern world and some cards are more set in magical world, somehow it still works. I don't know what to tell you. And that's coming from someone who really struggles normally connecting with decks which have a lot of different art styles, and that makes me struggle connecting with the deck. Oh, this is another reason why this might be an underrated deck. This card is such a weird fucking card. This is definitely, I know, has put off a lot of people. For me, it's hilarious. I've come to love this card. I think it's funny. I think it's quirky. I think it's definitely unique. But I know that it has put off a lot of people. It doesn't bother me, but I can understand why it would bother some people. I love this Knight of Wands. This is one of my favorite cards. There's a lot of those cards individually are gorgeous, and like I said, together they really sing this beautiful song. The guidebook is actually really great for a Los Scarabeo guidebook. You do get a lot of info here. For each of the cards, you actually get an explanation of what the card looks like and why. So for example, let's look at the Page of Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles is a young figure dressed in red and purple robes, sitting in a tree. They hang out with the flowers and fauna of the forest. They listen to the birds' song, the melody being shared enchants them and weaves a spell into their being. The spring scene around them shows the growth of the world as they too blossom and change alongside the lush growth which enfolds them. And then you have upright meanings and reverse meanings with key phrases. So I love the fact that we actually get an explanation of the artwork and a little bit of the story behind why it's depicted this way. This star card, gorgeous. Four of Wands, beautiful. Ace of Swords, come on, just honestly, so many gorgeous cards. Love it. This King of Swords, absolutely amazing. So I love this deck. I don't see it enough, and yet I think it deserves a lot more praise. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. I think also, thinking about it, the fact that it's a lot of different artists could be great if you are new to tarot and figure out what art style actually appeals to you to read with a deck. Let's say you've just started your tarot practice and you don't really know which art style or which style of deck speaks to you. By using a deck like this, which will have a lot of different ones, you will see the cards that you're automatically attracted to and the ones that are not, and that might help you figure out which decks are meant for you or not. So that could also be a good thing. This definitely follows the RWS, but it's not a clone. Like, obviously each artist has taken the liberties to kind of like depicts things the way that they choose, so it's not an RWS clone, but it reads like an RWS if you're familiar with that. Let's move on to another tarot deck. This is a deck that I actually got in a deck swap from the wonderful Semplicemente SE. I'll link the link to her channel down below. She's an Italian tarot reader. She's such a sweetie, so I'll make sure to leave her channel down below. We did a deck swap a couple of years ago, and this was one of the decks that she sent, and honestly I've been obsessed ever since. So I have the Italian version because SE is Italian, but I know that as this is Lo Scarabeo, it definitely exists in English and French, etc. This is the Tarocchi del Fantasmi, or the Ghost Tarot in English, and I'm so glad that Essie sent this to me because I've really been enjoying it ever since. It's one I love to use for specific purposes, and yet one that I don't see a lot of apart from Halloween time. And I'm here to kind of say that this is not just a Halloween deck, even though it's a ghost deck. This is great all year long, and I'll tell you why. So this is called the Ghost Tarot, which, as you're gonna see on every single card, we have these ghost-like figures, computer generated early 2000 vibes. I love it. I love this type of artwork. Just there's something nostalgic about it that reminds me of when I was like 12 and I was playing The Sims. The times when all I wanted was play Age of Empires and The Sims when I was like 10. That's right. This is like speaking to my inner gamer child. I've seen definitely this deck shown more around Halloween time and around Samhain time because of the theme of ghosts, etc. But I'm here to tell you that this is definitely not just a Halloween deck, and it's actually a very powerful deck if you look at it in its unique way. The fact that it's Ghost Tarot, I found this is wonderful to use as a way to connect to either more literal ghosts such as deceased loved ones, if you want to do any kind of like spirit kind of mediumship communication, past loved ones communicating with people who have died, etc. This could be great for like mediumship reading. The way that I personally have loved using it though, because I'm not a huge mediumship readings type of girl, even though sometimes I indulge and I enjoy them here and there, they're not like my favorite types of reading. The way I've actually enjoyed using this the most is through thinking of these ghosts as like my ghosts from the past. So things from my past that are still haunting me. Sometimes they are there to protect me, sometimes they are there to help me, sometimes they're actually poltergeist and they're messing with my head. Whatever it is, they are like things that we all carry in our souls, old wounds, old memories, joyful things, hurtful things, childlike things or not, things from our past, our inner ghosts, the things that we carry with us that still come and haunt us sometimes, or that come back to say hello, that we sometimes need to put to rest. And so this has been a great deck for me to actually do a lot of like shadow work around the theming of, okay, what am I carrying from my past? What is from my past affecting me today? Do I need to release? It could be even like outdated beliefs. So ghosts in that way, things that I'm carrying from my past in the form of like thoughts and habits. Not necessarily like people or situations. It could just be like habits, thoughts, things like that. This has been really wonderful for working in things that way, for thinking of the ghosts as things from my past that are potentially still affecting me today, that I've come back to have a play today. And I've read with this deck for other people with that in mind, and it has been so eerily true. Brought a lot of interesting and powerful reading. This is a gorgeous strength card. I absolutely love it. I think this would also be great for all of my creative writers out there, because there's a lot of story here. There's a lot of story. There's a lot of things you could be doing with those ghosts here. I think any one of you out there who enjoy creative writing, there is so much to get into here in terms of storyline, inspiration. There is another similar type artwork vibes that is called the Dark Fairytales Tarot. Not same, but I would say similar dark fantasy vibe. I really wanted to find a way to pick it up. It's another one of those that I don't see a lot of. Okay, last one. We have an Oracle deck. How many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's good. 6 decks, not too much. Hopefully you'll have found something here that either you had never heard of, or maybe actually it's something that you own and it's reminded you to bring it back out and to enjoy it again. I would love to, before I share with you my last deck, if you could actually share in the comment what Oracle or Tarot deck mass market do you think is underrated? Which one do you feel not a lot of people know of, not a lot of people talk about, that it's not shared enough, that it's not being used enough, that you wish more people knew about, that you feel is slightly underrated, and that is yet a deck that you really enjoy, that you feel is unique and stuff? Please share in the comments your most underrated mass market deck. I'd love to hear it. Last deck I want to mention today is an Oracle deck by Caroline Miss. It's Wisdom for Healing Cards, 50 Lessons in Personal Empowerment. So whereas the Oracle I was sharing with you at the beginning, l'Oracle Bleu, was very much focused around divination, this is actually the total opposite and is very focused around self-development. Very different type of Oracle, but I honestly enjoy both. I love a divination deck and I love a more guidance slash self-empowerment deck. The problem with me is I like a lot of things. I think that's my problem. The name suggests healing cards, so they're gonna be great to go to when you need a little bit of a healing message, you need a little bit of a hug from the universe, you're going through a shit time and you just want to pull a card to kind of like help you see what's going on in the situation and kind of move forward, resolve it and move forward. So the way that this is set up, on each card you have the artwork, you have a key phrase, and then on the back you have what it says, today's lesson. So here, for example, we have relinquish control, and it says identify one person you feel the need to control and think about why that power is so essential to you. What do you fear if your hold is release? Your goal, to recognize how much stress is generated in your body through the need to control someone else. So every single card you're gonna have the key phrase, and then on the back you're gonna have the lesson and your goal. And this is a deck that I've had for years again, and that I continuously come back to for when I just need to unblock myself. If I feel like I'm stuck in a rut, or if someone asks me a questions and they're like, this is not working, I'm having problems at work, I'm having problems in my relationship, I'm feeling uninspired, something is off, whatever it might be, this is great to pull a card from, because it will actually tell you this is what's happening in this situation and this is what you need to do. On the back it will give you actionable things that you can do to change your perspective. So for example, in examine your personal interaction, it says your goal, examine whether your interaction with others leave you empowered or disempowered. So this is something practical you can actually do relating to your situation. I love the artwork as well. I think it's beautiful. Who did the artwork for this? Janice Fried. Gorgeous. It's illustration, but some of it feels a little bit collaged. It feels very soothing, very cozy. So you know this is going to help you to get the support you need to pay attention to your well-being, be on your journey of personal self-empowerment. I love using this deck for, like I was saying, when there's a blockage of any kind. I love it as well for daily draws at night, to like, what do I need to know about today or the next day, anything like that. I love to use it for a clarification for tarot readings. It's fantastic. For kind of summarizing your reading, it's great. And I wouldn't use this in a big spread, but definitely in correlation with tarot readings, it's really, really good. So this is a good tool. It's a tool that is almost more like therapy than oracle. I feel like a lot of people would enjoy this one, and it's not one I see a lot of. I feel like I see a lot more of other Caroline Myss's deck, like her archetype deck is very, very popular. I don't have it, I have other archetype decks, but this one from hers, I don't see it ever really, and so I wanted to mention it here. Okay my friends, this is it. These were all of my underrated mass market gems for this particular episode. If you enjoy this, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and to leave a comment. It's a small gesture, but it does help my channel to stay alive, especially right now. YouTube is very hard. It's very hard to break through the algorithm. It's very hard to get more views. Everyone is really struggling with YouTube lately. So even just a thumbs up really does help my channel to stay afloat. And of course, I will continue doing this particular series, so if you enjoy it and you're not yet subscribed, I invite you to do so. I'm definitely going to be posting more episodes. I have more underrated decks I want to share with you, and I can't wait for you to share with me in the comments the decks that you think are underrated mass market, that you feel like more people should know of. I can't wait to read your comments. Hope you're all doing good. I hope you're taking care of yourself, and until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!